come back real soon. Same place, same time, same tune.
Good morning, sir.
It is a great day.
Someone said I don't wear hats anymore. I said
know.
that's not true.
I love
Not
that hat.
true.
Great looking hat. Hey, lot to cover today, man. Look, man, we got Auburn baseball coach Butch Thompson on talking baseball in the SEC with us. He, of course, has a ginormous series, and it is going to be two top five teams. When you look at the rankings, it's unbelievable. Number 1, UCLA, 2, North Carolina, 3, Georgia Tech, 4, Auburn, 5, Georgia. To say there's some good baseball played along Interstate 85 is an understatement. We will get started here in just a moment. I want to say take a picture with your cell phone of all the QR codes. We're broadcasting, streaming live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. 9 channels simultaneously. And then what happens is as we go along throughout the day, reels are put up and there's just a lot of content coming out. Chris Lee is going to join us from Southeastern 16 here momentarily to jump in here with Butch Thompson. Oakley, the intern, driving to Dallas for the summer, so he'll be out with us today. Just got that news. But we've also got Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, and Vince Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville. Let's bring Coach Butch Thompson in, and I know he's a little hoarse right now, and a combination of allergies and just being a coach. And I got to say real quick, our oldest one, Mallory, had another grandchild about early this morning. So that's May 13th. Mallory and Tyler over there, and Audrey took off last night about 6:30 from over here in Memphis. Took off and in the middle of the night heading down there. And so the baby's name is Audrey Reese Keelan. So basically, I'm invisible now. So got 2 granddaughters, and then I got 1 grandson, another one on the way in July. But what an awesome celebration. I am so fired up about this because I get to go to the zoo more because I'm like a kid. I love going to the zoo. I love watching baseball, and I love talking to people like Butch Thompson and Chris Lee, and we got the best EP in the world. Coach, I know you're hoarse, so let's just get your thoughts on, wow, what a weekend. I mean, the cathedrals of college baseball, and you know, you grew up 45 minutes from Starkville. As a guy that has grown up in the South, what Mississippi State means to college baseball, and to go there and win 2 out of 3 is an incredible accomplishment. And as you know, in this league, the only easy day was yesterday. You played Jacksonville State last night. They got the win. Now you come home tomorrow night, big 3-game series against Georgia that could determine, you could finish way high, hosting a regional, potentially a super, or you could go. This league is so tight. So what's the mindset right now heading into that series?
We just committed to put our head down for 5 weeks. So this is the 5th week. Feels like the fans have all the answers and know which way this thing is going. But we just simply committed to put our head down. We've been on the road in this great league for 3 of the last 4 weeks, and you play at a Florida and a Texas A&M and a Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And what we get this final week is what we saw last night was a team that just plays the game so well and matches you in a Jacksonville State, and Steve Beaser's done a great job. So this week we get 2 of the 7 teams that already have eclipsed 40 wins and have already won the regular season championship in Jacksonville State and Georgia. So we got to keep playing good baseball, and we absolutely have to try to keep the hammer down if we can, because these teams have played an entire season. They've already accomplished things, and they're just 2 of the most successful teams in the country. So it doesn't matter what we've done in the past, and it really doesn't. We need to show up this week at home, get back here. I still got a young team of freshmen and sophomores that are just learning lessons, life lessons, and more importantly baseball lessons right now, that you better show up each and every day. I think we actually moved up in RPI to number 2, and strength of schedules 1 in the country. So some of that stuff's in a good place. But in 26, we just didn't get a lot of buys. We We didn't have a loss in the quad 3, quad 4. Those some things that people look at. I know that from representing our conference in every school for 3 years on the regional advisory committee, things of that nature. So, analytically, we're a pretty strong ball club, but at the same time, this league is so crazy that we could probably finish second to ninth going into the last weekend. And every bit of this hard work of being in these hotels and being on the road and doing all this great road work, it's still in jeopardy, and we have to continue to try to, in some way, like Billy Graham, after you know, bringing all those many people to Christ and doing it for 75 years. They ask him, what else is there for him to do? You want to go fishing? You want to, what do you want to do? Sit in a rocking chair? He said, nope, I want to finish well. And that's what I want the Auburn Tigers to do this week.
Yeah, I mean, when things are going wild, and sometimes in the toughest of times, I learned something, and it really hit me last night after that game. I said, you know what? When all else fails, and maybe people are criticizing you, they're against you, say, you know what? I'm gonna bet on Butch Thompson. I'm gonna bet on Rob Brown. I'm gonna bet on Chris Lee. That's the best bet you can take. And man, you just said it. I can't say it any better. Chris Lee, Southeastern 16, jump on with one of our favorites, Butch Thompson. I love this.
Hey, Butch, I know timing may not be great with yesterday, but the big picture is you have won 6 straight conference series, all against teams I think are going to the NCAA tournament. That's pretty remarkable consistency. You mentioned the youth of your team. I know hitting consistency has been a struggle. Like, how have you guys done this 6 weekends in a row? That is really, really hard to do.
It is. We got 4 one-run losses sprinkled in those 6 weeks too, and it's just been close. Pitching, we're the only team in the Southeastern Conference below a 4 ERA. That's been the consistent formula for us, and we're headlined by 4 sophomores. And again, it showed up last night. But if you only score 1 run, that's going to be tough to win a college baseball game more times than not. But we moved. Right before we started this last 5-week stretch, we thought our backs were against the wall. We moved Andreas Alvarez, our Tuesday starter, to the weekend, and we took a really good SEC starter in Jackson Sanders and made him like a competitive moment. We created a role and said whenever a game that we're up in and we can pass the baton to the starter, to a long reliever, we're going to call that competitive moment. And Jackson Sanders, all he's done for 5 weeks by moving from a starting role to that competitive moment spot that we created is he's had 4 wins and a save. And not only when we dump him in the 5th or 6th inning has he come in and done a nice job, he's thrown the last pitch of the ball game as well. And that's made it pretty powerful for us. I would say pitching. But, at the same time, it's like the Saturday game against Mississippi State. Chris Rembert hits a home run early. We score a bunch of runs eventually to open up and go. The potential of our lineup and the quality of ball player, Chase Freilich and Bub Terrell and Eric Govar, you start going around the field. Eric Bingaman's one of the best freshmen in the Southeastern Conference. The potential's there. Just that day in and day out consistency. But you can't do this just with pitching if you don't score. So we have scored some runs. There's some moments in there of head scratching type stuff going on, but the pitching and defense has been pretty buttoned up. You can imagine going to Starkville this past weekend and playing a 3-game series and 14,000 every night, and you're not charged with an error for a 3-game series.
Yeah.
And we went pretty low. I think we gave up 4 runs and 2 runs the last 2 games of the series. Those are some of the recipes, in my opinion, what I've seen from being with them every day.
Yeah, I want to ask you a follow-up on Jackson Sanders, because I think, to me, and maybe I just noticed it with Kevin Kopps at Arkansas a few years back, it seems like it's been more of a trend to see these coaches use a guy as a silver bullet. I know you've also been kind of a guy of routine, and as a pitching coach, pitchers like routines. How do you arrive at a moment where you take a guy like Jackson Sanders and say, you're my guy to use in that spot? What kind of mindset does it take? What is it that tipped you off and said, all right, this is the thing that we need to try here?
I had a guy when I was at Mississippi State in 2013. We played for the national championship and lost it to another John Savage, great team of UCLA. And we used a guy that year named Jacob Lindgren, and we put him in that bullpen, and it just vaulted us. So this is what Jackson has done. Reminds me, going all the way back to 2013, Jacob had 100 strikeouts in 50 innings. Um, Two things mirror each other for this to be the example that I use is Jacob was incredibly competitive. Jackson Sanders is a valedictorian, smart kid, but extremely aggressive. And you can have four people on base, and he still can get to his pitch and still has that resting heart rate, and the competition kind of outweighs whatever fear may exist because he's human. So the competitive spirit's number one with the guy. And then, it's really two pitches. And that's another reason that you can do that with somebody. And why we elected, instead of flipping that lineup three times, maybe we can put him in a row where he only has to flip it twice because he's got two pitches. Now, both pitchers are way above SEC average, and I think that's the kicker. It's not like he's throwing an arsenal where one or two pitches are below SEC average. The two pitches that he does possess um, absolutely can make a difference. Jacob Lindgren went on to be the Yankees' first pick, and in the Southeastern Conference, you can go high being a bullpen guy. I think the stigma and people use like, well, you got to be a starter, you got to be this, you got to be that, because they've always been a starter their whole life. Not in this league, not if you can get these guys out. And Jackson just kind of fit that mold, and he was doing great as a starter too. But it is absolutely feel like it has matched identity. It's just been a doable role, and we wouldn't have won. We wouldn't have won 6 series in a row, the most in our league, if it hadn't have been for Jack. If it hadn't have been for Alvarez coming to the weekend and Jackson Sanders going to that competitive moment role, we wouldn't. There's no telling what scenario we'd be sitting here discussing this morning. But those guys hooked it up, and that's been the catalyst for this run. I think all of our players and coaches would agree.
Coach, I got to ask you this too while we're talking baseball. We lost in the last week Ted Turner, Bobby Cox, and there's a great picture someone did on Twitter. It's Hank Aaron at the gates of heaven welcoming Ted Turner and Bobby Cox. We got a lot of Braves fans that listen in our audience. I'm in Memphis, which is big time Cardinals territory, but I've always followed the Braves because of TBS. Did you know Bobby Cox? And talk about what he meant to baseball in the South, especially the decade of the 90s, man. You had they were the team of the 90s, and they won a World Series too, and they were there every year. But, man, it drew people in, and they annuitized their fan base. And you go to the Battery now, every game, it's packed.
Yeah, I don't know either men. I'm not going to name drop on you, but Ted Turner, the creation, the wherewithal to create a whole generation or more, maybe two generations of people that absolutely fell in love with the Braves. That probably still exists today and has probably already been passed down. So, man, that is forward thinking right there without me knowing anything. And then Bobby Cox, I didn't know him either. Shout out to Snitker. That's a friend, if you want me to name drop, who I just think hung the moon. What I think they both are similar with is who I do know, are the Tim Hudsons. Tom Glavine son played 4 years for Auburn baseball. And when I hear the character of those men and how they revere and talk about, I think you saw it with Chipper Jones and some others who we had on campus this fall and spent some time with. I walked away from like, man, I'd love a player or two to think about me in that regard of like just as a man, nothing to do with on the field, just how you're a relationship. And Bobby mastered that with his players. You can say what you want, and people are pretty loose lipped ever in society to say whatever the hell they feel like they want to say. But I imagine if you're around the person that had really been around Bobby Cox and they had that relationship, you better be careful if you say something about Bobby or Cox around the wrong person, because I think attack's coming, because I think that guy was the ultimate of building relationships, and those guys would lay it down for him. So never met the man, don't know him, but knew enough men around him that I tip my hat for sure.
Yeah, and I will say this too before we go back to Chris. You've talked so much about 48, 60, 70, 80 SEC players on major league rosters on opening day, and we're really annuitizing the popularity of Major League Baseball with the great job that the Southeastern Conference is doing and college baseball in general. Because what I always appreciate about you and other coaches is the respect you have. It's a fraternity. You all have empathy for each other for what you go through, your wives, your kids. I mean, it is a grind on another level that, you think you're having tough times, and you've got 35, 40 people plus assistants that you're responsible for. But it's just it's drawing us into baseball. Chris, let's jump back in with Butch Thompson.
Yeah, Butch, I want to ask you, I think the weekend series with you and Georgia is fascinating. I'm kind of glad, no offense to Georgia. I do love Athens, been to games there, but I'm glad it's in your park where the ball maybe doesn't get out as much as it does other places. I think that's truer to what baseball ought to be. But I think this is a remarkable matchup because they can hit the daylights out of the ball up and down the order. I know they're missing a guy, I think, in Hudson who's done, but it hasn't really seemed to matter. I mean, there's not an easy spot in your lineup. There's not an easy guy in your weekend guys to get to. How do you see this matchup? And by the way, kind of an interesting stat. I think this has a lot to do with how both of you have gotten where you are. Per 9 innings, you guys in Georgia are 1 and 2 in fewest pitches per 9 innings. I think that's, you get back to surviving weekends. I think that's helped both of your teams, yours and his. Wes Johnson's a good bit.
Yeah, I think everybody makes something out of Georgia's lineup and our pitching staff, and I think it's good to dive deeper and look at our offense and their pitching staff, and I give their pitching staff some credit too. So I always think, the level one is the obvious stuff that my mother is talking about, and I think the people that are really in the game are going to go to a deeper level and look at the other matchups that it might swing or break there.
Yeah.
I think our offense being able to keep up with Georgia. It is May 2026. The other advantage would help us if it was February 2026. So I don't think Plainsman Park's going to hold Georgia's bats either if they get a hold of a baseball because the ball flies so much better in May, and we've hit and done some damage and stuff too more recently offensively than we did the first half of the year. So our park kind of plays like that. In May it gets pretty offensive. So, but it is fascinating to see if we can cut their runs in half or check them up any. 2 weeks ago, I thought the Texas A&M was the best balance of patience and power. You go Grahovac and Wilson, the awesome freshman, and et cetera. And we did, we did 5 or less for 3 games. The Mississippi State, the Ace Reese, you start going around how offensive that ballpark is now. I coached in the other one, was a pitcher's park. This new Duty Noble, man, you can get bit down the left field line, the right field line at any point in time. But we were able to, they beat us up the first night, and then, we kept them to 4-2 to give us a chance to win the series. Can we do this again? Because it's amazing how we talked about A&M's offense, and you talk about Mississippi State, and then oh boy, here comes the real damage guys. And they also have discipline at the plate. And 2 of their assistants, Will Coggin, Nick Amorati, deserve a lot of credit. Wes is a pitching guy like me, and those 2 boys, I both coached those boys in college, and what they've done offensively and the strategies, because you think all this power and all these home runs, if they're swinging at everything, you would be sorely mistaken. There is a discipline to their at bats. There's not the chase rate out of the zone does not make sense for the power they produce. It's pretty impressive if you take a deeper dive and really look at Georgia and how they can have that type of aggression, get to the front door, and also be able to spit on pitches. So it'll be a cat and mouse game. Everett Tiford and Scott Foxhall's our pitching brains, and what can they put into our players, because our players call their own game, which is kind of unique to be matched up with an offense like that. And now I'll be talking about Daniel Jackson the rest of the week, and that ain't the only one you should be talking about. Up and down that lineup, like you say, is powerful. But these 5 weeks now, this has been amazing training for us. This will be our 5th super regional in a row.
Yeah.
and it's, it's good to get back home and see how we can play. And we still have so much to earn. I hope and think that we'll be here at Plainsman Park for a regional, but you want to create a path and you have to earn it. And could we earn a little bit more? We have so much to play for. Georgia has a lot to play for. Everybody in our league still has a lot to play for, basically. And we got to lay it out there. But nonetheless, I'm going to make sure in this last week, can we still grow? The team is crazy young. All of our starting pitchers are going to be sophomores. Jackson, if we get a chance to get him in the ball game, these are all young guys that are still growing and still learning. So this is a training weekend for us. And I don't think anybody's been trained better the last 5 weeks. Maybe there's an argument somewhere, but nonetheless, we have been afforded the best training the last 5 weeks for whatever lies ahead here in the future.
And Coach, baseball in the SEC and around the country. Last year when Coastal Carolina was out there, you talked about the maturity, the age of that pitching staff that they had. And while we're myopically focused on the SEC, you got really good baseball at Georgia Tech, North Carolina, UCLA #1. Talk about some of the differences that are maybe obvious and also the ones that are not so obvious that only a coach with your mind would notice.
I don't think it's ever been better. I think the 20-round draft is showing up where it's not 1,200 kids getting drafted. Now you got 600 more guys in college baseball. I think the advent of the 34 player rosters. I know we got some designated student athletes that make probably our league, 37, 38 for most rosters, with a few designated student athletes that only happen one time. But when that 34, coming out of COVID there, 21, 22, 23, you'd have 45 to 50 players on every SEC roster. Where did those 15 guys go times 16? They're at Jacksonville State. They're at these other teams and other leagues. And we just got fortunate this year with our schedule, I guess, of a Jacksonville State being in state and geographically that we could schedule, and they're great. Then it's a 40-win team. The Georgia Tech's one of the best teams in decades for those guys, and been playing them my whole career. Danny Hall left Coach Ramsey, this new sharp coach who really helped probably design and build this roster, left him a great ball club. I just around everybody that we've played, we didn't play 5 of the 6 teams at the bottom this year in our league. Mm-hmm. You never know how that's going to shape out. You don't even know who the good teams are going to be coming out in a schedule, but it benefited us from a metric standpoint, if you will. But that's made a tough journey. But it's if we can survive and get rid of over these coughs and keep pushing and get better and find a second wind, it's going to help make a difference for us. And then the last thing that I think about is, like, in this new day and time, I was talking to Jim Case, who the field's named after at Jacksonville State this morning, and just a good friend. You talk about, well, what's the team going to look like next year? And you can start carrying that across the board. The new normal is half your players are staying and half of them are losing in this new world. So the ability to create consistency and stay at a high rate, we're fighting to try to host 4 out of 5 regionals, but the one we didn't host, we're last in the league. It is amazing now that you see the turnover of half and half every year. Man, you're fighting for consistency, but there's a volatility in that scenario where half of your team is in a rotational turnover. And I think that's across the board with just the way the setup things are now. So it's sad to report, but I would say we've been putting a lot of time in the last 2 weeks of already shaping up and figuring out retention, already figuring out, like, what do we have to replace, getting a feel for the draft. We can't just wait and get to that point and then try to do the 785 moving pieces. Those tracks are being laid. The time is being spent on that stuff now because it's a half and half concept in this new era of college baseball.
Yeah. One more, Chris, and then we'll wrap it up and let everybody go. But this is great stuff with Auburn baseball coach Butch Thompson.
Yeah, if I could be allowed 2 more, I had one, and then something you said just prompted a couple here. roster restrictions for next year. What changes between 26 and 27?
The DSAs, they get their whole career and then
Okay.
they'll fall off. The stuff's so confusing to me. I get a lot of
Yeah.
help. Carl Nunemaker's probably my sharpest guy on our staff to bring us stuff. Scott Foxhall helps a ton in that regard. And, we have a collective too. So, something will change before we get to the portal opening also. That's been the case. And every time you get it from the administrators and from the collegiate side, you'll get like, hey man, this is going to suppress this year. And then a portal opens, like football, like basketball, and it's up another 30-40%.
Yeah.
So it is the biggest hoax I've ever seen. And I keep hearing suppression, and every time that door opens, it's up another 30-40%. So it is not, I've been so well taken care of. And my leadership above me, I've done nothing but say, I just absolutely think it's the best scenario that I possibly could have and have ever had in my career in a John Cohen and a president, Chris Roberts here at Auburn. So thankful. But whatever we set a mark at, and as you draw closer, it just continues to be more. And I would say that is the most disappointing thing. I love this team. I love my coaches. I've never had more fun coaching college baseball. I know some people can say that and some people can't. I genuinely mean it. But when we're chasing this thing and this bar keeps moving and going, I just keep saying to myself, how can we ever get a handle in certain regards? I accept the new way that everything is going, and I accept some of the setup that we're never going to get it to be in the past. So this isn't an older coach saying, hey, I want everything like it was in the past. I'm accepting of that, and I'm willing. I just think sometimes when you give me the game and give me the rules to the game, let's play. Let's get after it. When we play a game and you're constantly changing the rules, it drives me crazy because sometimes it just favors the lucky. Sometimes it just favors maybe not the guy that really knows how to play the game.
Yeah.
That drives me bonkers. And so we're in this musical chairs and where the music stop and what you can get and all these people that love and invest in your program, we just keep punching them in the gut. And I just, I'm sorry to get on a soapbox. It's your fault, not mine.
Well,
But,
hey, look, I could
Feel
ask
free,
you an
Coach.
hour's worth of follow-up question. I think that you did leave out one thing. I think it also favors the worst of the bad actors. I think that could fit in there too, but we could talk about that a while. I do have one more question, and maybe we'll get to that one some other time because I think that's a topic I got a lot I want to go on. What do you sense that the committee is going to value for the tournament this year? Because I'm looking at you. I think you guys, when I did mine, you're the number 3 national seed right now. I do worry, like, if you get, swept by Georgia, hopefully not to speak that in existence for you. I'd like to see the conference get a lot of hosts, but like then you're 16 and 14, and I'm like, okay, do they look at the record? Do they look at who you played? I would think you ought to be a national host no matter what happens. But the thing that's interesting to me is the committee added KPI last year, and I think is adding DSR this year. Is that correct?
I believe so. I just think it's more for them to look at on their plate. So if there was one sheet added to like the discussion, hey, this support material may help. Now I think there's going to be 3 sheets of paper on their desk that they can look and browse over 3 different things. I will say this now. It's the same point I just made. Don't make me schedule 2 or 3 years in advance and try to produce the best schedule possible because they told me what I have to do to host a regional and to build my program is we've tried to take Auburn from where it was and put it in a different category because our program traditionally cannot just sit at home and bring the whole country to us and do our thing. They told me I had to go on the road. They told me I had to play a top schedule. For the last 5 years, we've played a top 5 schedule in America by design. And so if you throw out the RPI, and I'm definitely in this position this year, but the reason why I'm in it is because that's how I was told how to construct it. And so I've done everything in our power to give us to ride the meanest, rankest bulls I can in my I go to Arlington. We take that road trip. We brought Nebraska in here that won 20 out of 21 after they left our place. We're going home and away with Georgia Tech, the best team arguably in the ACC here the last couple of years. Won it last year, might win it this year, back to back. We're going to Jacksonville State. We're doing those things by saying these are the rules of the game. And it's important to us to try to play postseason baseball here because it hadn't happened enough. And so when I say 4 out of 5, I want to be as humble as anybody in the sport. And that's important to me.
Yeah.
But that's a big deal. And we did that from the first 4 or 5 years of having to go to NC State and having to go to Georgia Tech and go to all their regionals. Well, this is how you change it. And we've done that. So if they're going to start looking at something less and they're going to change the rules, they're going to have to change the rules in July and August, right after they finish playing the game that we set up.
Yeah.
And I'm for it. But you need to get to July and August and say, hey, these are the real tweaks to the game that we're going to be looking at when we get ready to do the field next May.
Yeah.
You have to hold a line. And those are good people. Hey, and those jobs are incredibly hard. We talk about every time we go through this. But the rules of the game, here's another instance where it has to hold true. The same things until they change the rules, until they let us know, they have to hold to the rules of engagement. And that's what teams are shooting for, to define that the best they can. If we want to do something different, if we want to better the game, then we need to lay that out a year before, at least 10 or 12 months before, to give us some new rules and things that we need to tweak.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, I wish we had more time. We got Dudley, Dawson, and Vince Ferrara coming on. But, man, this is a great discussion. Chris Lee, Southeastern 16, Auburn baseball coach Butch Thompson. Are you going to tell everybody just show up in Auburn, whether you have a ticket or not, stand on top of each other, a human pyramid, to have a record crowd down there?
Yeah, I don't think I have to give out my email anymore. I've had more ticket. I feel like Ticketmaster now, so I'm not worried about that anymore.
Yeah. Well, I know Guy and Waller May and Susan and Beverly, they'll all be down there. You're creating your own mini Braves culture down there. I mean, it really is that much fun. And Chris, you make us, both of y'all, are baseball on another level. But thank you both so much, more than you know, for sharing your time with us. And we'll do it again next week if y'all are available. But it's just getting started, man. I love it. You made our day great. Thanks, Coach. Thanks, Chris.
Have a great day, man. Appreciate it.
You too. Thank you. Dudley Dawson from Greer's Ferry. And I know that is not McKellar Lake in downtown Memphis. I'm positive of that. All right. Dudley, this baseball talk, college baseball, it's annuitizing our interest in Major League Baseball. And I asked Butch Thompson about, did he know Bobby Cox or Ted Turner, but we lost 2 giants in the last week. Baseball, you and I, when we would come home from school before practice, Steve Stone, Harry Carey on WGN, saying hello to all the shut-ins and the widows and the orphans, and it all at St. Cecilia's Convent in Springdale, Illinois. The Braves, a couple of years ago, 4 years ago, 5, when the Braves won the World Series. Remember, they were out in Houston and they showed they call them the TBS kids, were there. Half the crowd in Houston or more was Braves fans. Studio baseball. But SEC baseball, Dudley, you got a hot race in this league. Arkansas, Dave Van Horn, 21st, 22nd year. There's nowhere to hide in this league, and you can be the top 5 team in the country and be a game away from being 500 for the year.
Absolutely. I mean, you had a situation, and by the way, I could listen to those 2 guys talk forever. I learned something every day. Like Coach Thompson did say 3 sheets. I think sometimes the people who make these decisions are 3 sheets to the wind when they do make these decisions. But it's the race is not necessarily for number 1; it's for number 4. Everybody is jumbled up there between 6 and 9, and everybody's trying to get to 4 for the double bye for the SEC tournament. And if you do that, then if you've got a good enough RPI, you're going to get a host. Obviously, Arkansas sitting here right now would not be a host. They're projected to be a number 2 seed by the guys who do that. But, if you could go sweep Kentucky this weekend and get some help, then maybe you have the regional here instead of having to go to California, Florida, Mexico, Cuba. I don't know the places that they'll send them. They'll send them as far away as they can if they don't.
Of course. Yeah. Well, they will. And you talk about hosting a region. Arkansas is going to get the benefit of the doubt anytime it's close because of the crowds that they bring at Baum Stadium. That's just one of the great atmospheres. They say 12,000, and I know fire marshals watch this show, but it's probably a couple more than that. I mean, 2 or 3 people.
Fire marshal, or at least their own fire marshal, has one of the best seats at the stadium. So,
Of course, Dudley. All right, Vince Ferrara is going to join us in a second, and I want to get both of y'all's thoughts. I want to bounce around the league on some issues too with Lane Kiffin's comments. I mean, he just can't stop. He just can't. And it's drama though, and it fuels a lot of interest. But you're looking right now with the Razorbacks. Ryan Silverfield, post spring practice. What were your takeaways that you can tell us about Arkansas football right now? That, hey, he's doing this different than what was done before, and I think it's better, or the opposite?
Well, I've trumpeted this out before, but I do think there's more of an accountability in the program now than there was. Things that he's done discipline-wise, and just making sure they're in class, making sure they park in the right spot.
Yeah.
Just little things like that, I think, has been different, and it's been very welcomed. This is a big week for him. He's already been out doing a lot of stuff, meeting with a lot of coaches and all that. But this week he goes and meets the fans. They're having what they call the virtual road show. They had one last night here in Fayetteville at the Ozark Music Hall. Last time I was there, I was seeing Bootsy Collins and Parliament Funkadelic. So, it's a venue that works well for a lot of stuff. But the
Parliament Funkadelic.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's going to be in several different places. End up in Frisco, Texas. Obviously, Arkansas has a lot of boosters down there in Dallas. They're going to do that rally speech inside the Star there on the Dallas Cowboys campus where they practice and stuff. But he definitely has taken the bull by the horns and run with it in terms of engaging the media, engaging the fans, engaging the boosters, which was big for him in getting some more money. And that's been well documented. But now he gets the opportunity to go out and do this, speak right to the fans, get all the cameras on him. And I think that he's in a great situation. Until the season starts, they love him. And he's got that first tough 3 games, and he knows it. He's talked about it, but he's in a transition period where he's trying to change the culture, not just the record.
Yeah, you're right. You got to change the culture. And Sam Pittman is a great offensive line coach, and it's another case of it's hard being a head coach. Now, Ryan Silverfield has 7-8 years of NFL experience coaching offensive line in college before he became a head coach. I think that should work out well. Wow, look at that band. And, I like that. That is a
dude. You have to have a conversation if you don't know who P-Funk is.
Man. Wow.
That's P-Funkadelic, dude. Is like the OG.
Yeah. Well,
major props, Dudley Dawson. You just got huge points with me.
Well, George Clinton sits in his wheelchair the last 2 times that I've seen him. Gets up, every once in a while, but he's done a great job. And that was part of my growing up being close to Memphis. I wouldn't have got that if I'd have grown up being close to Little Rock. So.
Yeah, well, I will say this too. I was over in Overton Square last week for Crawfish Festival, sitting there with my son having a road soda Saturday afternoon, looking across the street on Madison at Lafayette's Music Room. I mean, that's where Billy Joel. I mean, we were kids. We didn't know who he was, but he was this guy that played. He was really good. And then down the street at Minglewood, at East End Ballroom, they call it. You had the band U2 from Ireland came over, and also the Police, and they would bring these bands in, and then we got into high school. We're like, these guys are good, and they became pretty good, really good. And then you two would come back to Memphis to record albums at Ardent Studios there on Madison, across from one of my favorite places, the Quick Check Korean Grocery on Madison. So, Dudley, you got to go there and get the bibimbap burger. Their dumplings are off the charts good, and the Jesus sandwich. But Dudley, looking at the SEC right now, and this baseball race is so intense. What scares me is a team like Arkansas that isn't where they normally are expectation wise. It's in their DNA. It's like when you're in a 5K and you're racing against someone you don't know, you've never heard of, and he's on your back heel the whole time, and you've been winning all the races by 200 yards. It's a little harder when you got to work for it. The Razorbacks, Tennessee's another program. They've been so good. That DNA is hard to erase. They're going to be back, and I'm going to get back to that. But
neither one of those, both of those clubs, people don't want to see them come. Don't want them to be the number 2 seed in their regional, whether it's Tallahassee or UCLA. I mean, UCLA to me looks like the best team. Obviously, has done that all season. But I think they'd rather have somebody else other than a team with the resume of the past, like you said, coming to them. Arkansas will trot Hunter Dietz out, who's one of the nation's best pitchers, wherever they go. Now, will they trot him out in the first game, or will they save him for the second game? That's always the question. Most of the time, Coach Van Horn has trotted out him for the first game and worried about the second game later.
Yeah, I mean, but it is a culture, and when you see that Arkansas, you see Tennessee after what Tony Vitello did with that program, it gets in your head. If you're not careful, it gets in there and it can be a problem. Vince, welcome.
They're not pitching great other than Hunter Dietz, but boy, they're hitting the ball now. They scored over 30 runs this weekend and against Oklahoma. So that thing's coming around. So I think they feel pretty good now. This is a big weekend for them. Going to Kentucky, the last weekend of the regular season. That's going to determine a lot of things for them, including, how far I have to drive for a game.
Yeah, no, it does. And Vince, I love these notes, man. Strength and conditioning impact. Let's get started from there. Welcome aboard Sidelines on this Wednesday, May 13th, 2026. Man, May's just 2 months away from Media Days. It's incredible.
In Tampa, Florida. So,
right. Hometown.
Beautiful thing. Yes, sir. Rob, Dudley, Cowboy. Hope you guys are doing great.
I love it.
So yeah, just real quick on the baseball topic that you guys were on. It is the depth of the league is always there, right? But I think you're seeing even more powerful programs that have that history and tradition you guys are talking about, not in host situations potentially on the 2 line, that makes them even more dangerous. Now, do the ones that are in the regional host positions, do they take care of their own business? Typically, there's going to be upsets, but man, I think it was Mike Rooney, who's an excellent analyst for ESPN. I heard say, for getting in the business of betting against the SEC, that is not good business, not smart approach. So there'll be lots of threats, even though some of the host positions will be a little bit different than what we're used to. But as far as football, UT put out the impact of Derek Owings, and who was the strength and conditioning coach they hired from the Indiana Hoosiers. Right after they won the national championship, the next morning he was in Hucksville, and he was starting to implement their strength and conditioning program and brought a bunch of staff with him also. The football team in a 14-week program put on almost 900 pounds of muscle mass. Now, even if you break down the roster, you're like, oh, split it up in 105. That's still like 10, 11 pounds over, a couple of months period. That is not easy to do. And then their fat total is down like 200 something pounds. He's getting those bodies the right way. And you see it. You see guys that are David Sanders Jr., the 5-star tackle. He was a freshman last year. My goodness, he looks in unbelievable shape. I think he's going to be a dominant left tackle in this league as an elite 5-star. guy that plays up to that potential, and his body has completely changed and improved. And they got some big boys, but they need them to hold up in the fourth quarter. That was a big issue for Tennessee, is sustaining in the fourth quarter. So yes, you got to be bigger, stronger, faster, but you have to have that cardio and be able to sustain blocks and get off blocks and be able to run and strain, as football coaches, as we hear them say all the time, in the fourth quarter. So line of scrimmage, straining, and then something that was huge for Tennessee was tackling. It was bad last year. And then that was not the case in prior years under Tim Banks, but it was a year ago. And, when you're tired, and Idris Farouk, one of their safeties, mentioned it, that, it affected my fatigue, affected my tackling, because you're a step slower. And if you're a step slow, you may be completely out of position and miss a tackle, or just whiff on it altogether because you're a little bit slow. So tackling has got to be a big impact from the strength and conditioning, but you got to put the base together and get bigger, stronger, faster, and in better shape. And they are certainly doing that big time under Derek Owings.
Well, you just mentioned about straining. Just a little bit of information at VMI. The cadets, when they walk around campus, they have to do this it's called straining, where you hold your shoulders up. That's the first time I've heard that term used outside of Virginia Military Institute. So that is, and also the strength and conditioning coach over there, the morning after the national championship, no time for a hangover and celebration. I think Tennessee, Dudley, has invested a lot in this offseason. I've also familiar with some stuff that I know about them. Man, they're raising some money. I got to ask you about Arkansas, Dudley. With John Calipari seems to become the spokesman for what's going on in college basketball, and he's really good. He's also got a really good team that he's recruited, and he's bringing in a lot of talent. Kind of talk about the latest with Coach Cal.
Had a couple more big guys visit. They're waiting to make their decisions, so still hope on that front. I'm sure that he'll pull it off in the end, as he's known to do. I keep thinking,
very successfully.
Yeah, I keep thinking that Malik Thomas will be staying in the draft, and Billy Richmond is having a really good NBA combine. So he's going to have to watch out for those. But the thing he did, he went ahead and recruited the positions, except for that one center spot. He recruited those positions that even if they go away, he's still going to be really good. But if they come back, my Lord, they're going to have such a thing. I wanted to point out, Vince was talking about tackling. I had one of my younger colleagues, much younger colleagues, asked me a question about, he said, was this the worst Arkansas secondary in terms of speed and tackling you've ever seen last year? And I said, probably. They were not very good last year, but I said I have seen defenses before not tackle well and also get to the wrong spots quickly. And so it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other than that. It was not a good defense last year. Coach Silverfield knew that right away. In fact, you mentioned Cal. That's what kind of made me think of it. Cal and him were talking, and he said, "Hey, you got to go get you some offensive guys." And Coach Silverfield, "No, I got to go get me some defensive guys." Because he had already watched the film, and it's become apparent that he was looking toward this way a long time before the actual announcement was made. So I think that in bringing up football again, the fact that I think that the fact that nobody's willing to get anybody hurt these days has reduced the amount of great tacklers you had. I may not have gotten to the spot quickly, as quick as someone else, but if I got you, you're down. And that's not the case anymore. Everybody's trying to take a big shot, instead of wrapping up. And I know I sound like that guy out in the middle of a yard now yelling, but that's exactly what's happening.
No, I agree with you.
Rob, real quick, just to follow up on what Dudley was saying on tackling, because this is obviously, we mentioned how that's been a struggle for Tennessee. So when we talk to players and coaches, a big topic of conversation. One thing that Jim Knowles he implemented is he has a career reel of tackling for all the players, everybody. In fact, he has them or the staff has them for everybody in the portal. So when it gets time to where they're interested in a player or not, they can bust out the tackling reel. It not only has all their tackles, it has a lot of their misses also. So they have everything there. They have video of everybody so they can review and address it. And it's a way to combat, to Dudley's point, not being able to do as much on the field and that live tackling. And I've asked coaches about it. How do you get better at it? I even asked Quay Moss, who's probably going to be Tennessee's starting star, a transfer from Kansas State. How do you get better at it? And he said, tackling's really not that hard. You just can't be scared. And guess what? Some guys are not willing tacklers.
Yeah.
So I think that's a part of where strength and conditioning can help you guys. If you get that, if you get that mindset of, hey, I'm not afraid to do this, because now you push your brain past where the comfort level is, and you don't doubt yourself because you continue to accomplish and raise the bar on what you can do. And so that's their way of being able to help guys be able to tackle and achieve new things without actually doing it, is the tape, and then also that strength and condition element to make guys willing to do it.
That just blows my mind that people don't want to tackle anymore, don't want to hit hard.
Correct.
I mean, that was all I did back in the day. I'd rather have done knock somebody out than catch a touchdown pass or run one in, but we had Billy Warren to do that anyway. But I tell you, I'd like to have a reel of all 16 of my personal foul penalties during my high school career.
I love it.
I'd like that. I'm pretty sure that some of them would have been called targeting these days.
Yes, they'd be a forensic review audit. Hey, Vince, real quickly, we'll go bounce back and forth because I got a couple more things. You had a chance to talk to Tennessee Athletic Director Danny White on your morning show on the Sports Animal. What do you have to say?
Yeah, he's not something to come on with us usually every couple of weeks, but they were on the Big Orange Caravan and they had AD meetings last week. And he said, in the AD meetings, he thought they were productive. They touched on a lot of the topics around the big topics around college athletics. And then also, there's that Duke Amazon Prime TV deal that they cut separately in hoops, as you guys know. And I asked him about that. I said, what's the future of that in terms of it growing and Tennessee's potential participation in it? And he said, that's a good question. He said he's not sure how fast it'll grow, but also he hadn't dug in totally yet on what the conference thinks about it. And he doesn't know I haven't really discussed it with Greg Sankey or the SEC office. Hey, what would you guys think about a school doing their own thing in terms of a TV deal like that? So it's still new. He said he will dig in. He didn't talk down on that deal. He said congrats to them for working that out for what works for them. I don't think it's great for college athletics because the rich get richer in making those kind of deals. It also reminds me of Texas when they were basically trying to put themselves out there as a free agent in college athletics and doing their own thing. So I think you're going down a slippery slope, and it's not good unless you're going to have everybody kind of separate the rich from everybody else.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by it because I thought the conferences had TV deals and that's how it worked, but everybody else go out on their own. So we'll see how it works and all that. But it's come a long way since they had late night Memphis games on TV over there in Arkansas. Late night. They were replaying them. They weren't live. They were replaying them. And
WKNO with Al Brown and Matt Dillon. Man, we would go to the game, then come back home and watch it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Mom back in the day let me stay up for those games.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, because she knew where my future was. It was playing or writing about it. So,
well, listen, great. You're right, but the Longhorn Network, guys, true or false, pretty much led to the implosion of the Big 12. Nebraska, we're done with you. That's just I don't like even. I mean, they can bring up whatever they want, but that would be a terrible decision. Vince, I mean, Dudley, agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think you're asking for that kind of distaste and hurt feelings from the rest of the league. I would be surprised that Greg Sankey would allow anyone to do it, because they're a league as much as anyone. Hey, we're doing things collectively here in the Southeastern Conference. So I wouldn't expect it, in like the next team to be an SEC team. I think some others that are a little bit more separated and independent, that they would do that before the SEC. But it's something that's kind of potentially down the road.
Yeah, and Dudley, you saw as an Arkansas covering Arkansas what Texas was like in the Southwest Conference, and then the Big 12, and they're slowly but surely, they'll try it in the SEC. Hey, they got a lot of money. There's nothing wrong with that.
They've lost some of that arrogance over the years. They realize now that they're one of instead of the program.
And this isn't about that topic, but in terms of the SEC and their stance on stuff, I love the fact that they're standing firm with 16 and letting everyone else talk about 24. The SEC is in a tougher spot this year because they went to non-conference games and the playoffs didn't expand. The SEC is going to be fine regardless of what the format is, however many teams they have in there. It's all the other conferences that want to go 24 because they think that's their best avenue to access to the playoff. The SEC is going to lead the way in teams in the playoff, no matter how many teams are in there. But is it what's best? No, It's not. It's 16. And I don't like the fact that we're not taking steps in growing this thing, that we have to just double it when we do change it.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but great discussion. Hey, I don't like buys. Like baseball, if your bats are hot, you don't want to rest them. Buy teams are 1-7 in the first 2 years of the 12-team playoff. Dudley Dawson, hogville.net, Vince Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville. Check these guys out, consume them, get them, follow them as much as you can. You will be better for it, man. Two of the best guys in the business. Thank y'all more than you know for sharing your time with us. And let me, well, you bet, man. We'll wrap it up and say, there's a lot happening. I don't want to go to 2014 playoff. I think it would be a disaster. Not a disaster, but there's only maybe 6 teams that legitimately can win a national championship in a given year. Hey, but let me say this. Get out to Landers Ford, people. Poplar and Houston Levy, where Germantown and Collierville meet. They'll ship to you anywhere in the country. Landers Ford, also Mount Moriah and I-240. Brad Bellamy is the general manager. Make it simple. Call LandersFordMemphis.com. I want to talk to Brad Bellamy, the GM. He'll get you squared away in a car, truck, or SUV. And remember, all month long, month of May, you get employee pricing. You buy from Landers Ford, you pay what they pay for a car, truck, or SUV. All of our sponsors, they're live, sidelines.live on our website, which we're about to be upgrading. You're going to love it. For executive producer Brendan Martin, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Congratulations there, Mallory. Welcome to the world, Audrey Reese Keelan. What a big, big day. Chandler's got a sister, and Alexander's got another cousin, man. We'll see you tonight. Thanks for watching.
Turning up that talk like you right there inside the crowd.